Good morning, David. It's a pleasure to talk to you. How are you?
I am well, thank you very much. It's midweek, and I always go on a nice cycle through the week. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are better than Monday, Tuesday, and so I'm good. How are you?
Can't complain at all. Can't complain at all.
Good.
So, thanks for agreeing to have this conversation with me. As you know, that the intention of this well-being conversation is to help people understand what challenges are there out there, because a lot of people are worried about well-being, but they don't know where to start. So I thought if I can actually get people who are working in this space to give an overview, that will probably give the comfort to everyone who's listening and watching this video that they are not out there all alone. It's a problem that everyone is facing. And then the expertise that you have, if you can give some practical tips, maybe they can go back and implement it. That's the intention.
Okay.
Yeah. Brilliant. So for the benefit of our viewers, can you please say what you do and where you work? And a little bit of David, a colorful side of things, apart from the nice goatee that you have.
Apart from the beard. Yeah, no problem. Pleased to. First of all, let me start by saying that I suffer with anxiety and depression. And so my interest in mental health is also a personal one. And there are members of my family that also suffer with mental health issues. So this is something which has been personally on my agenda for many years, and now professionally. And may I introduce myself as well? So I'm employed by the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce. I'm the Business Alliance Manager, which means that I look after around 60 multinational organisations in membership in the Chamber. So people like BMW, GWR, Sanofi, University of Reading, kind of the larger organisations. And my role is to engage with them in membership to help them contribute to our agenda, which is to inform Her Majesty's government and inform policy and help future-proof the Thames Valley region. So our remit really is to support businesses in the Thames Valley to help them with their branding, with retaining staff, with attracting people, and their contribution to the greater good of future-proofing the Thames Valley. Personally, my background is from a commercial background, selling consumer electronics into larger retailers, people like Dixon's. I did that for many years, and then I kind of came out of that, and now I find myself at the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce. Would you like me to say anything about the Thames Valley itself chamber, or is that not really relevant?
For the benefit of viewers, this title, please, it's your platform. Promote the Thames Valley Chamber.
Okay, so I didn't know anything about Chambers of Commerce before I joined, which is why I wonder whether it's worth me giving a short summary. So this will be short. So we are one of 53 accredited chambers, and we're accredited with the British Chambers of Commerce, who are the ones that have the weekly conversations and dialogue with Her Majesty's government, with Westminster and Whitehall. Being accredited means that we have, I suppose, a direct line into the BCC, and we work with the British Chamber of Commerce, with their policy team and with their agenda with businesses. So we're the 5th largest out of 53 chambers. We're the 2nd largest chamber for inward investment outside of London, and we cover quite a wide range actually in area. Going right out to sort of Swindon, West London, almost up to kind of Milton Keynes, Oxfordshire, and predominantly our membership is Bucks and Berks, with a high concentration in Slough and Reading and Oxfordshire. So that's the chamber. That's a brief introduction to myself.
Fantastic.
One of the other roles that I do within the chamber is I'm the mental wellbeing champion for the chamber. And so what that involves is I kind of gather out of our membership those people who are passionate about mental health, about mental well-being, who would like to learn about best practice, and share knowledge about what works and what doesn't work. And so my role is also to kind of gather people to things like webinars and events where we'll discuss mental well-being from the perspective of what businesses are doing and can do to support their workers with mental well-being.
Brilliant. So, I mean, given that you said you are, you are going through some of the well-being challenges yourself, and you are being the well-being champion.
Yeah.
You actually, when you interact with companies, is there a common thread that you see that has emerged pre or post-COVID from a well-being perspective?
That is a very good question. Certainly, the old demons of despair, depression, worry, anxiety, self-medication, addiction, all of these things are kind of accentuated because of COVID. So where there was already anxiety, where there was already some struggles with personal life, COVID seems to have exacerbated that. And so the concerns from, health and safety people, HR people looking at their mental well-being strategy in organizations is how to reach those people. And the challenge is to not have a one-off event that kind of plasters over the issues. It's very easy for an organization to get a few mental health
workshops or
webinars, first aiders, and then report to the board, oh, we've got our mental well-being strategy down pat, we're okay because, hey, look at the posters on the wall, we've got our mental health first aiders, that's all we need to do. And you and I both know, Ram, that this is something far deeper and needs to permeate all levels of an organization in order for the stigma to be reduced and for the people who really need help to feel comfortable to be able to access that support that they need. Okay.
I mean, I have talked to quite a few organizations. Some have, this is, I'm talking of corporates, not the SMEs.
Sure.
So some have actually taken a proper approach, even pre-COVID. They've got a well-being strategy in place. They actually get everything, literally, to use the term, every duck lined in order.
Yeah.
They've got all that.
Yeah.
And there are companies like what you say, again, corporate ones, who are just doing it and who are now waking up to the reality is okay, having a mental health first aider is not just going to cut into the mustard. We need to actually think deeper and wider. Yeah. Now, I am also seeing that people are worried more about the exact thing that you raised, where I can't see them day to day. And how do I ensure that that support is provided? Yeah. Because putting up a poster or one or two webinars or a mental health first aider is not going to help. So that's something which people are starting to talk about. So do you see anything interesting that has emerged as a result of have you noticed anything interesting with companies?
That is another really, really good question. And the reason I'm hesitating is because I feel like I'm perched on the edge of a cliff, about to go over the cliff, because we have an event on the, as you know, Ram, on the 22nd, which is a webinar where we've got a fantastic panel lined up where we're going to be kind of really looking at, the effect of COVID-19 on mental well-being. And we're going to be looking at what strategies are working, what isn't working, what changes organizations are actually making because of the impact of COVID. And I feel as though I have kind of lined up my ducks, and I'm kind of looking forward to this platform for me to learn more, because where I'm at is I've got some members who have their employee assistance program, EAP, bolted onto their organization, who are really, really effective and flexible. They have their occupational health working, who are really effective. They've got their mental health first aiders, and the three kind of aspects of mental health in the company work really well together. And pair that with good top-down leadership, and it seems like they're making a difference. But these organizations there aren't that many of them that I see doing it really well. Now, I'm also on a voyage of discovery as I start to get into the nitty-gritty with my members and with the wider audience. So I'm also, as I said, perched on a cliff, waiting to discuss some real issues more, hear more what people are actually doing, because at the moment I still don't feel that my exposure and my understanding of my members and what's really happening there is mature. I feel like I'm at the beginning of a journey. What's excited me, to answer your question, what I have seen is in most cases a really impassionate response, and kind of almost people running to join, to discuss and to learn together. I love the way that there are no real politics, that there are not very big egos associated with it. People are willing to share and learn, and to say, this hasn't worked, this does work. And that kind of non-egoic learning amongst these business leaders, I love, because of course, on some other issues, branding and things like that, there can often be quite an ego present. But what's encouraging to me is the people who are championing the mental well-being in these organizations, whether it be at board level or whether it be middle management, they are really enthusiastic about wanting to get involved. And so that's encouraging to me, but I still feel as though I'm at the beginning of a journey.
I mean, it's not only you, David. I mean, because if you look at, if you were to do some Google search on well-being in December, or even in January or February, all you would end up is healthy eating, exercise, diets, and some bits and pieces around, a lot around meditation, but nothing around the mental well-being side of things, the emotional, the workplace stress. It was non-existent. So everyone's starting the journey now. So, I mean, it is fascinating in a way to be part of the journey. And it's also an interesting thing to note that companies are now realizing that, boundaries or lack of it now, because people are not in the same space, has actually is trying to bring them together at a deeper level, which is very interesting. Now, you mentioned that you are a well-being champion. I mean, what does a well-being champion do?
Yeah, I asked myself that question when I put it on my LinkedIn profile a few months ago. I suppose I see myself as a facilitator, as a gatherer. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I, for example, don't lead the mental well-being for my organization. That's with my HR manager, and so it should be. Where I see my role is, first of all, my personal belief that there is such thing as recovery. There is such thing as moving from a really difficult space with one's mental health to a place where it can be managed. Mm-hmm. I do also believe that if an organization really wants to support their staff, that there needs to be a concerted effort across all management, across all layers of an organization, in order for the stigma to be reduced, in order for trust to be built, and for individuals to be able to say, hey, you know what, this is a bad day and I am struggling. And when that happens and that's accepted in an organization, and I've seen it, a different energy encompasses the people, and there is a more compassionate leadership. There is a greater desire to listen to each other and to really allow people to have feelings and be human. And what excites me, as well as the idea of individual recovery, is the potential that can happen in an organization and teams as this compassionate, non-egoic energy transforms teams, because it's amazing what you can achieve when you don't mind being vulnerable. It's amazing what you can achieve when there's trust between individuals. It's amazing the creativity that comes when people are less protectionist around their roles, and people are willing to come together to try and achieve things, and that excites me as well.
And I think the world is moving towards what I would call as, a deeper connection at the human level, rather than profits driving people. It's now saying profits matter, but people matter equally. Because that's a very, very interesting dynamic. So if I am to ask you some pearls of wisdom, because you work with big companies, and the chamber has so many companies of various, they have 5-man bands, 1-man to 100 people.
Yeah.
How and where would you? How can they start the well-being journey? If you're looking at it, where should they start?
I think that the place to start is always with the leadership. I think that any well-being initiative will fall flat unless you have a friend at the senior leadership. I believe that the importance of leadership in giving permission for the other members to be able to talk about and own up to and share experience and be vulnerable. I think that all comes from the top. So yeah, that's where it starts. And if it is not a one-off, let's make this look good rather than let's do good, as long as it's well-meaning, then it can all go from there, and as strategy is kind of developed, hopefully from getting together with organizations such as people who are joining us on the 22nd, I think then the world is our oyster, as it were, because we can learn from others. We can see the one-man bands, the corporates, the larger multinationals. We can see what they're doing, and when we discuss openly what's working and what isn't, then as a team, as a leadership team in an organization, one can look at that and say, well, what do we need to do? This has worked for that company, this has worked, but these are the needs that we have. So what can we adapt? And every organization will be different. Every organization will have different personalities, and that's the responsibility of, dare I say, management, to understand their people and understand their needs, and to have good managers in place that can report back accurate information to be able to understand more the people that are working for them. So that human capital, understanding your workforce, understanding your people, that's where the real wisdom comes from. Without that, if you don't have that, you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to be throwing things at people, some of which may catch, some of which may not. But yeah, I think it starts from leadership, being willing to look at, okay, where do we go from here, and then ask the right questions.
It then brings to an interesting question. What you said is, you can't spray and pray approach, have a spray and pray approach. Now, yes, we are coming out of, fingers crossed, my economy is going to move in the right direction, or or not. Either ways, there's a lot of money that is being pumped into well-being, and the market is now growing big time. I mean, last year, year on year, it was 5%, and this year I won't be surprised if it's actually grown by 10 or 15%, big time.
Yeah.
So money is going now, but the question is, when you just pray and pray, there is no scientific way to then evaluate the return on investment, because you have to have the cash flow in to ensure that the initiatives are effective.
Yeah.
So my question is, do you think it is wrong to expect return on investment on any well-being initiatives?
Fantastic question. And allow me to be honest with you. I think this is a huge blind spot for organizations. And, you know, one of the outcomes that I'm hoping from our well-being agenda in the chamber is to really drill down to what can be measured and to put a value on well-being. I think at the moment it is kind of woolly. You know, people, even if people are passionate about it and they, you know, create initiatives, and unless it's a value on the bottom line, our board's going to want to reinvest and invest at the right level. So, I mean, I'm working with I mean, they won't mind me saying Pfizer at the moment on a value healthcare project where they're seeking to monetize and put a value on people's health. You know, everything. You know, most things have a monetary value to government, to policymakers, to organizations, to leadership. But health has fallen somewhat, you know, in the cracks of an organization. And now is the time to put a value on that. But this is where I also lack the knowledge. And this is where I lean on people like yourselves, Ram, and your experience to help our member organizations be able to achieve this, because I think we're at the beginning of a huge learning curve, and this is where we need good experts like yourself who have given this intense study and who have something to offer to kind of show us the next step, because people are blind, and without matching the bottom line, you know, return on investment to the board, you know, to the FD, unless you can do that, you're not going to get the right level of investment going forward, because the bottom line is businesses are in this in order to stay alive, create a future, and they do that through their profits. And the way to measure profit, that's where this is, you know, touching on this question, and I appreciate you asking it.
Brilliant. Now, I'm mindful of the time. Give one last question.
Sure.
If you are to give 3 pieces of advice to anyone who's listening to this video from a well-being point of view, or 3 things that they should be doing, what would those 3 things be?
Be honest with yourself and your organization where you're at. Do a personal inventory, either if that's for yourself in your role in your organization, or of your organization if you're in a leadership position. Be honest with where you're at. Number 2, identify where you would like to be. You know, ask questions, have a look at what other organizations are doing. If you don't know where you need to be, have a look. And when you decide where it is that you want to go, then gather your team together and find a way to get everyone to buy into it, to buy into the steps that you're going to implement in order to get there. Now, the steps you implement may not get you there. The steps you implement, you may change. But what's important is that everybody is together in this. That's what makes a difference. And just coming together on this and feeling the support of a community and an organization moving together, that is 90% of the battle. 10% is the kind of, okay, this program, what works, how we integrate with our EAP, occupational health. Do we need to, you know, employ a psychotherapist one day a week. All these, what you do is not as important as how you do it, and you do it together.
Okay, brilliant. Once again, thanks a lot for your time, David. It was a pleasure talking to you. It was very insightful, very informative. Really appreciate it.